they get grown up and people have jobs, and you'd ask if I ever had a real job. I worked for about 10 years in video production. I learned how to edit and write and do all those things that you do to make commercials and films or training films and all kinds of boring stuff. But it was fun. It was a good job. I enjoyed, again, you're just making stuff. Because as long as I can make stuff, I'm pretty happy.
Right.
And stayed, had a regular schedule, stayed home. And then, what do you know? Your kids are grown.
How much music, musicians do music. I mean, my wife's an opera singer. She was a professional for a long time. She still sings all the time. How much music was in your life, or did that lapse a little bit for a while?
I had 5 years where I didn't perform anywhere, which right now sounds like, wow, how'd you go 5 years? But yeah, I had 5 years where I didn't play at all. Now, when you're a writer, and particularly a songwriter, because songs are so short, there's always little tunes creeping through your head, and ooh, there's a title of a good song. So I was always making notes, and hey, what do you know? I finished a song. So over those 5 years, I was still a musician in my head, but I just wasn't out playing anywhere. And I was having a regular job and a very orderly life and raising kids and having a great relationship. So eventually, as the kids get their own lives going, they're older, they're teenagers or something, and then there's time for music again. So it kind of snuck up on me, and we started playing at Malloy Brothers when it was Malloy Brothers up in the Westport Shopping Center, and started doing a Wednesday night thing there. And I was making music with Jeff Porter, and we had, it was going real well, and so we decided we're going to make a duo album, and half of Jeff's songs, half of my songs, and it's still to this day a very, very nice record. I'm very proud of that record. Well, we decided, what the heck, let's go to Norway and play these songs, and just going to book a little tour of Norway, just Jeff and I go, and the first show is in Oslo. And we walk out on stage and we play one of our songs, and it's, very well received. And we play a Rainmakers song, and the place just erupts. And I'm like, oh, wow, I forgot about this. I forgot about this. And so after that trip, I decided, well, could we have another Rainmakers trip? Just a trip to Norway. Go play the Rainmakers songs in Norway. So this is 2011. There's 2010. And it's 2010, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, 2011 will be 25 years since we released our first record. That's a good anniversary. Let's do a 25-year anniversary.
I was trying to think of this. I know now, you and I ran across each other at the airport, and I was trying to figure out where it was, when it was, and now I know it was 2010 because I went and covered the Ryder Cup in 2010. That's why I would have been at the airport. And, of course, you're unmistakable. And I went over and we talked a little bit, and you were headed to Norway. So now I know. Now I know.
Well, I knew you and I had talked somewhere at the airport.
So now I know the date. There we go. That fits right in. And so you decided to do this kind of on. You went and got the reception for the one Rainmaker song, and then what is it like as sort of an entrepreneur to say, hey, we're going to do a Rainmakers tour. We're going to go to Norway. We know there's an audience there. How does that work?
Well, in the 13 years that we were broken up, the media had changed a lot. The internet came into existence. When the band broke up the first and second times, there was still no internet. So that changes everything. And the technology of music, downloads were just starting in 2011, starting to kind of become into existence. People were still buying CDs. Our actual plan was, let's just go brush up on the old songs. Let's go to Norway once. Let's just have a great time, and then we'll come home and call it a day again.
Right.
Well, in those 13 years, we had all become better musicians. We had become better people, more well-rounded, more accommodating, and I think I had become a better band leader, acknowledging people's contributions, desiring their contributions. Man, what do you hear? What do you want this to do? And we had such a good time making the first record. Well, okay, so we planned to have this tour. That's all we're going to do. We're going to go on tour.
Right.
Well, being the money grubber that I am, it's like, well, we ought to sell as much crap as we can while we're there. Okay, well, let's make a new record.
Right.
Okay, well, yeah, let's just knock this out. They'll buy it. Well, I hadn't written any songs. Okay. better get to work and write some songs. So I decided, okay, I'm going to write for the Rainmakers again, and I got to do it now. And I think we made one of the best records we've ever made, just because we had no expectations, we had no pressure, and we had no reason. It was either do it for the love of the music, or don't do it.
Right.
And we got together at Pat Tomic, our drummer's house, who has a studio in his home, and he was actually set up in the living room. And we recorded in his living room, and wires everywhere, and pizza and beer, and let's learn the next song, record it. And it's one of my favorite Rainmakers experiences, and I think some of the best music we ever made is our, what you might call a comeback record,
right,
called 25 On, that was made in 5 days and recorded in 5 days. We would just learn the song, record it, learn the song, record it. And we had such a good time. We're like, oh, well, don't stop now. You may have gotten all your egos out of the way, and you may have gotten your band leader in check, and everyone's having a great time. We're making good music. Well, why stop now? So yeah, we did I think four or five trips to Norway. Started playing around Kansas City. Did a few other excursions Midwest up to Minneapolis. Over to St. Louis a couple times, and kind of realized, well, this is how far we want to drive, and this is how far we don't want to drive.
Right.
We'll get on the airplane, but driving across the country, I don't think we want to do that anymore. And so we made a second album in 2014, Monster Movie, which was a lot of fun, and actually is my favorite Rainmakers record of all. It accomplished everything I ever wanted a record to be. It's really political. And it was written before the whole era of Donald Trump, and yet the word Trump actually appears in one of the songs. But there's all this thing, Monster Movie, about the monster that is our political climate, and how it just kind of it can devour everything good. So there's a lot of, I think, very relevant political commentary on that album. And there's also a lot of fun on that album. There's a lot of funny stuff on there. We co-wrote some of the songs. Everybody gets a lead vocal turn, except Pat. He doesn't do a lead vocal. But it was just another good experience, and it ends up with a piece of musical art that I am extremely happy with. Like, there you go. That's what I wanted that record to sound like. And we made one more album after that, where we decided we would all pick out our favorite obscure covers,
right,
or more or less obscure covers. Some of them were top records, but do the Rainmakers version of it. So we did an album called Cover Band, which was all these odd choices from the Carter Family to Tennessee Ernie Ford.
It's pretty good, pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that at the end. I'll wait on that. When you were during the entire span of the Rainmakers, but especially at the point where you're making the records with the record company, there's a weird dynamic in there. The fact that you would get some presence or want to be interviewed or whatever by Christians because of some of the the tenor of the songs, be it the fire and brimstone type aspect of the songs, and Christian radio maybe had some interest in this type of thing. Was that ironic to you?
It was ironic in that I think when you're really trying to write honestly about where you're from and reflect the place that you're from and the people that you are from, religion has always been a deep part of life in the Midwest. And so, and religion was a big part of my life growing up, just traditional church, and then going through, my own quests for some kind of truth and trying to figure out what's real and what's not real in Christianity. That's crept into the songs. Well, if you just mention Jesus or Moses in a song, some Christian writer who's not paying attention is going, oh, well, here's a Christian band. Oh, no, we're not a Christian. But I would end up, with lots of interviews. I don't know we ever did Christian radio. I think they had figured out by the time they listened to the song, nope, this is not a Christian band.
Right.
But the interviewers would want to talk to me about my journey of faith or however they saw it, or what was I trying to say. And finally, one interviewer says, well, if I'm going to, he told me that he thought if I was going to write about my Christian faith, that I should just do it much clearer and just really testify. And I'm like, why don't you start your own band and you write the songs the way you want to? How dare you tell me how you think I should do?
So
my band?
his feeling was that you were really like a devout Christian,
Well, he
and
wanted me to be.
And you were sort of using subterfuge to not make it that type
I
of
don't
song.
know what he thought. He thought I should do it. However I was doing it, I should do it differently. It's like, yeah, thanks, Mr. Music Critic.
And Stephen King is like the writer is an unabashed fan.
Yeah.
I assume you've met the man now.
Yeah.
And he's quoted some of your lyrics in a couple of his books and things like that, and continues to tweet and about the Rainmakers. That's pretty cool.
We had released our first album, and we had toured relentlessly, and it was late 1986. So we're finally getting home. We're going to be off the road for a while. Our agent calls and he says, I've got this offer to go to Bangor, Maine, and play a single show. It's for this author, Stephen King. And I'm like, yeah, I know who Stephen King is. And I said, man, we just got off the road. And he goes, well, he'll fly you out there. All you got to do is get to the gig and play the gig and come back home. And he'll pay you really well. I'm like, oh, okay. So we fly, and there's a blizzard. And so we can't even land in Bangor. We have to land in Portland. We get 2 rental cars. We throw all of our stuff in the cars, and we drive like mad through a Maine blizzard in January to get to Bangor. And we get to the Civic Center in the afternoon. We walk in. There's food. There's the stage. There's the PA, and there's not a soul in that building. There's no one in that building. The doors open. We all look. We're like, ooh, it's a haunted Civic Center. Stephen King. And finally, he shows up, and this was, still during kind of Stephen's wild years. But he was real nice, and he had brought us there because he had bought the local radio station, and he had them play all the music that he wanted to hear. And he wanted to see if he jammed on a new band, and he picked ours, if the people would turn out for a concert. Good plan, except for the blizzard. So we do our show. I think we had about 200 people in the 2,000-seat auditorium. And I look up in the very top rafters, and there in the very top rafters, huddling over his grocery bag full of tall boys, is Stephen King sitting at the top of the auditorium. And he comes back and backstage after the show, and he says, I'm working on a new book. I'm gonna put some of your lyrics in it. And I'm like, yeah, that's nice. I'll believe that when I see it. And sure enough, the next book comes out, and each half of the book starts out with a Rainmakers song, not in the story, but as like the title, kind of the title page of each half. And then so a couple other lyrical references popped up in the next book, and yeah, it was just nice to know that somebody of that renown was listening to your music, and that it meant something to them, to where they wanted to reference you in their song. And then years later, after we do Monster Movie, he tweets, hey, Rainmakers are still kicking ass, and Bob Walkenhorst rules. And my daughter saw that, and she puts it on Facebook, and she goes, my dad's cooler than your dad.
Well, that's probably a good time to talk about your daughters, and you have grandkids now, but now you're making music with one of your daughters. Yeah,
our younger daughter, Una, is she's always been the quiet, sensitive, adventurous spirit. And when she finished high school and did a couple years of college here in town at Penn Valley, she decided she was going to move to New York. And so she lives in New York for a year. And then she comes back and works a little in Kansas City, and then decides she's going to go out and travel around the country with her guitar and just see America. So she does that for
I like that plan.
Yeah. And we were talking about you have to enjoy your own company. She was doing that trip all alone and would stay at Airbnbs, or then she discovers couchsurfing.com, whereas people just let you stay for free. She stayed on a porch with a goat. She stayed out in a teepee and wrote songs all that time. Comes back to Kansas City and decides that New Orleans is where she's going to land. So she was in New Orleans for almost 3 years. And then a little more than a year ago, she decided that chapter was coming to an end, and she didn't know where she wanted to live next. But she didn't really think she wanted to live in Kansas City. She, it's that thing of, well, you don't go back home, go somewhere else. And I said, well, we've got this, this little space in time where I'm still healthy and making music, and you're really you're hitting your stride as a songwriter. Let's make some music together, and then you can move on to whatever comes next for you. So that was a little more than a year ago. And
So was she receptive immediately to that?
Yeah, she actually was. I think that she saw that as, that makes sense. And we started, while she was still in New Orleans, kind of sending some song ideas back and forth and realizing, oh, yeah, this will be good. Both her unique voice